On a July morning in 2012, employees at a futures brokerage in Cedar Falls, Iowa, found their founder unconscious in his car outside the office, a garden hose running from the exhaust pipe through the window. Next to him was a suicide note. In it, Russell Wasendorf confessed to something almost impossible to believe. He had been stealing from his own clients for nearly 20 years, using nothing more sophisticated than a scanner and a printer. This is the story of Peregrine Financial Group, a brokerage that looked, on paper, like one of the most trustworthy names in the futures industry. And it's the story of how one man fooled federal regulators for 2 decades using tools you could buy at an office supply store. To understand how this happened, you have to understand what a futures commission merchant actually does. Firms like Peregrine Financial Group, known as PFG, hold client money so people can trade futures contracts, bets on the future price of things like corn, oil, gold, and currencies. Because that money technically belongs to customers, not the firm, regulators require it to sit in a segregated account, completely separate from the company's own operating funds, untouchable for anything except client trading activity. Russell Wasendorf founded PFG in 1980 and built it over 3 decades into a respected name in the industry, a firm that handled hundreds of millions of dollars for farmers hedging crop prices, professional traders, and retail investors. On paper, PFG looked stable, well-capitalized, and completely compliant. Auditors checked its books every year. Regulators reviewed its filings. By every visible measure, it was a trustworthy institution. Here's the part almost nobody could have predicted. Wasendorf found a single narrow gap in that entire regulatory structure, and he exploited it for the rest of his career. The way auditors were supposed to verify a firm's segregated account balance was by contacting the bank directly, sending a confirmation request that only the bank could answer. It's a system built on the assumption that a request sent to a bank will always land at the actual bank. Wasendorf broke that assumption in the simplest way possible. He set up a private mailbox, a P.O. box, and arranged for verification requests to be routed there instead of to the real bank. When an auditor's confirmation letter arrived, it landed in Wasendorf's hands, not the bank's. Using basic desktop publishing software, he created convincing fake bank letterhead, forged the account balances auditors expected to see, and mailed the falsified confirmations back himself. For years, nobody at the bank ever saw those requests. Nobody at the firm's outside auditors realized they were essentially auditing Wasendorf, not a bank. While client account statements showed hundreds of millions of dollars sitting safe and untouched in that segregated account, the real balance was often a small fraction of that, sometimes reportedly as little as a few $100,000. Wasendorf would occasionally shuffle money in and out around key audit dates to make snapshots look plausible, then pull it back out once the check was done. Where did the missing money go? Not into a single dramatic bet or one big loss. It was drained slowly, over decades, into an increasingly lavish personal empire. Wasendorf funded private jet travel, took an ownership stake in the U.S. speed skating team, and spent an estimated $20 million building an elaborate restaurant and event space in Cedar Falls, complete with a rooftop deck and a personal office suite modeled after his own vision of success. Employees and clients saw a confident, successful businessman. What they didn't see was a man quietly running one of the longest-running frauds in the history of U.S. commodities trading. For 20 years, the scheme survived because the verification process itself had a single point of failure, and nobody thought to question it. Audits happened. Filings were submitted. Everything looked, from the outside, exactly like a firm in good standing. The scheme finally cracked not because of a whistleblower or a forensic accountant catching a discrepancy, but because of a technical shift in industry procedure. The National Futures Association, the industry's self-regulatory body, introduced a new verification process that allowed auditors to confirm bank balances online, communicating directly and electronically with the bank itself. That single change eliminated the P.O. box interception that had made the entire fraud possible for 2 decades. Faced with an audit he could no longer fake, And with no way to produce the money that was supposed to be there, Wasendorf ran out of options. Before the fraud could be exposed publicly, he attempted to take his own life in his car outside PFG's headquarters, leaving behind a confession describing what he'd done and why. He survived. Investigators who moved in afterward uncovered a shortfall of more than $200 million in client funds, money that thousands of farmers, professional traders, and everyday investors believed was sitting safely in their names, untouched and available whenever they needed it. Wasendorf pled guilty to fraud and embezzlement charges and was sentenced to 50 years in federal prison, a sentence that effectively guaranteed he would spend the rest of his life behind bars. What makes this case so unsettling isn't the size of the fraud. Plenty of cases in this series involve larger numbers. It's the sheer simplicity of the method. There were no complex derivatives, no exotic financial engineering, no army of co-conspirators covering tracks across multiple institutions, just a fake bank letterhead, a rented P.O. box, and 20 years of nobody questioning where those verification letters were actually coming from. Sometimes, the biggest frauds aren't built on genius. They're built on a single blind spot that nobody thinks to check, and 2 decades of an entire industry trusting that the system was working exactly as designed. I sell the scripts and research behind every video on this channel. Links in the description if you want to use it for your own content. If you want the next collapse story before it goes live anywhere else, subscribe. Tomorrow, we're breaking down the next case nobody saw coming.